This is my house in Palm Springs, and for the last 2 years, I've rented this thing out so that people can party it up at Coachella. And what people always want to know is, how much do you make for Coachella, and is the place trashed? So here it is after weekend one of Coachella. The only mess in here is from me filming this video. And the 3 times now that I've rented it out for Coachella, it looks perfect every time afterwards. I know you guys want to know how much the house rents out for Coachella. Let me just check my records here. For Coachella 2023, the house rented out both weekends for $1,200 a night. We had a 3-night minimum, so we made $3,600 per weekend before any expenses, because let me tell you, there are a lot of them. So that is $7,200 in gross profit from renting a house out for 6 nights total, both Coachella weekends. It's a good time to have an Airbnb here, I will say. But there is so much more to the story, and I actually wanted to do a full in-depth update of what the peak season 2023 is like compared to 2022. As you guys know, 2022 was not so great for my Airbnb, but it's a new year. And now my Airbnb is finally super profitable. Okay, so not really. But I have made adjustments to how I run this place. The economy has changed a lot, and I was surprised how that affected our profitability in the peak season. If you aren't familiar, spring is the peak season here in Palm Springs. Between Stagecoach, Coachella, and spring break, this is the time to rake in the cash. These months are pretty crucial and typically when we make the most money off of our Airbnb. Will it last to carry us through the slow summer season? And am I making as much this year even though the economy is not as strong? I think you guys are gonna be surprised with how things panned out, because I know I was. We did make one huge mistake in 2022 that cost us a lot that I'll get into. But first, let's recap March and April of 2022 so we can compare it to 23. In 2022, we booked out quite a lot at $700 a night. So March and April last year, we made a lot. It was about $18,000 per month before any of the expenses. After paying our property manager, we were left with $15,000 each month. And we did have a number of expenses, so it averaged to a net profit, so that means after all the expenses are paid, of about $9,000 for each March and April. I'll have the exact amount on the screen. This was, the best we did all year. It's a good amount to make $9,000 from a single house after expenses. That is definitely peak season numbers and not what the rest of the year looked like. So like I said, there was a big mistake that we made this year and we need to talk about it. The big mistake we were making in 2022 was allowing our property manager to do a higher nightly rent, but give away free pool heat. Now, I didn't realize at this time just how expensive free pool heat was. In the peak months, our gas bill was usually $1,300 to $1,500 per month. And because we were giving people free pool heat and usually subsidized pool heat as well, we were eating a lot of that cost. And this was smart on my property manager's side because she gets paid a cut of the gross revenue. So she's not really worried about what the gas bill is. At the time, I didn't realize just how expensive our gas bill was gonna be. And when I saw these crazy rents, I thought it was fine, let's give the free pool heat. But after going through the entire year, I realized it actually doesn't make much sense to do this. And that is because you are paying your property manager before expenses. So if you're charging a higher nightly rate, but giving free pool heat, you're paying a higher gas bill and a higher property management bill. So going into 2023, I decided instead we were going to lower the nightly rate, but charge the full amount it actually costs to heat the pool. We also have a new, more efficient AC unit, so our electric bill should be lower. Let's take a look at 2023 and compare. As you guys know, we took a slightly different approach given the economy. We just had to lower our nightly rate. I actually noticed everybody in Palm Springs lowered their nightly rate from last year. So instead of $700 a night, now in 2023, we were averaging around $600 a night. As soon as we lowered it $100 a night, we were booked up so fast. Within just a couple days, we probably had 10 bookings. And that's still a really good rate to work with. We can probably still make a profit from that, I hope, maybe. All right, so March 2023. We had 22 nights booked out in March, and the average nightly rate was just around $600 a night. So we ended up getting $13,000 in rent, around $1,500 guests paid additionally for pool heat. So our cut of all of that after our property manager was about $13,000. But our expenses were again pretty high. We had to pay $6,306 for all of our expenses. And that is actually more than we expected because our pool heater had to be repaired. So after our expenses for this month, our net profit was just shy of $7,000. And when we compare this to 2022, we can see that it's about $2,000 less in 2023. Obviously, this is worse than the previous year. Honestly, I expected this just with the fact that we were gonna have to lower the nightly rates and everything. Now, April was a different story. So April, you have to remember this is when Coachella is, so we always just make a ridiculous amount this month. So you can see we had a lot of bookings for April, 24 nights booked out. Our average nightly rate was $735. So the total guests paid in April was $17,669. Pool heat payments so far is just around $700. After our property manager's cuts, our portion of the rent that we get is $14,488. So our portion that we will get paid is $15,181. The expenses so far this month are about $4,300, but that is so far. It could be more than expected. It almost always is more than expected, honestly. It'll probably end up being $5,500 somehow. It always is. But our net profit at the moment is looking like $10,836. So surprisingly, April 2023 did better than April 2022. This is wild. We're actually making more this year, even though our nightly rates were lower. We actually had more nights booked out this year than last year. So that is part of the reason. Part of it is also just structuring it in a way where guests are actually paying for pool heat. We're not giving it away. And then, like I said, our property manager is getting a cut that is more on par with what the actual rent is without giving away the free pool heat, because that is kind of falsely inflating our nightly rate. Pretty interesting stuff if you ask me. I fully expected April and March of 2023 to be lower than 2022, but what do you know? Looks like April this year is doing better than last year. And also, I will say, May and June, we have more bookings than we did last year. Our nightly rate is lower, but it's very possible that we might make more this year. But we do have to be careful not to make the rate too low because we only get 36 rental contracts per year and we're breezing through them. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with how the springtime is going. In general, things are always changing in this space, and I wanted to update you guys on 3 things that I've noticed going on with short-term rentals and some things that I'm doing myself. So some final thoughts on the state of Airbnbs in 2023. What's going on with the Airbnb bust? Is it still smart to invest in one? Am I going to sell mine? No, I'm not, okay? So personally, I do think how the economy is right now is going to continue to affect Airbnbs for the next year or 2. I think we're going to see most hosts lower their nightly rate 20%, maybe more. And I've seen a lot of areas have lowered their nightly rates. We are getting more bookings for May and June than we did last year. So I think it's possible that we'll actually break even in the later spring and summer months. I am excited to say that we are finally in the process of getting solar panels. So we're waiting on the electric company to approve everything, but that should lower our expenses around $500 a month, which would be major. And I'll be doing a video all about solar panels, the costs, what the process is like, how it affects our profitability, everything like that. So stay tuned for that one. Once we get that done, it is a process that takes some time. You have to get permits with the city, so it's not an overnight thing. You can't just order solar panels on Amazon and stick them on. You gotta have them installed professionally and permitted and all of that, but it's happening. And of course, I'll be sharing all the numbers. Another thing I wanted to note was a big change with Airbnbs in Palm Springs specifically, and that is the cap on the number of short-term rentals that the city has allowed. So I've mentioned before that this is a very regulated city. I mean, they limit the rental contracts you can do. You have to get everything permitted and properly done, but they've actually put rental caps on each neighborhood here in Palm Springs. So this new rule is only allowing 20% of the homes in a neighborhood to be Airbnbs. And what that means is you can't really get a permit anymore in Palm Springs. So new people that are looking for houses to buy to make into Airbnbs aren't going to be able to actually make them Airbnbs until enough people get rid of their permits, which could be years. Essentially, this is good for my Airbnb because it's going to constrain the supply while the demand will probably remain the same. I've seen for people who have invested in Airbnbs in these situations before where they get in before there's a rental cap, it usually turns out very good for them. So it'll be interesting to see in the coming years how that affects profitability. I don't think it will affect anything too much in the next year or two because there's still so many active Airbnbs, but I do think over time people are going to sell their houses and the new owners won't be able to get a rental permit. That is a reason that I'm not planning on selling this Airbnb. I actually think it's possible that we're gonna do better financially this year than last year, but who knows, there could be a crazy maintenance bill. It really just depends on that. But even with our nightly rates a bit lower, we found ways to lower our expenses a little bit. With the solar panels, I think that it's possible. I think that we are gonna be doing better than ever, even with lower nightly rates. So that's what it's like to rent out your house for Coachella, how much we are making in 2022 versus 2023, and just the general state of Airbnbs right now, in my opinion, as an Airbnb host, and specifically in Palm Springs. I think that things are still pretty good. However, I still agree with what I said about the Airbnb bust in that it's not a great time to invest in an Airbnb just with the interest rates and everything right now. So unless you're buying in cash, I just think there's no way it's going to be profitable, especially with nightly rates down. And I am seeing a lot of our vendors been charging more. But if you are a current Airbnb owner, I don't think it's a good time to sell. I think that, you know, things are still doing pretty good and I'm going to hold to my Airbnb and still continue to go here and enjoy it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this update. Be sure to subscribe if you like the Airbnb update videos because I will be doing a solar panel one. I also wanted to throw in there, we do have our direct booking website up. If you guys are interested in booking the Racket Club Resort, you can save a lot by not booking through Airbnb, but by booking directly through us. I'll also say this time of the year, I don't have the pool heated right now, and the fact that I'm in it for this long, you save a lot at this time of year also because you don't necessarily need to pay for pool heat. In June, you definitely don't need to. So if any of you guys are interested in booking, I will link our direct booking website below. It's actually, in my opinion, a good time to visit Palm Springs because the restaurants aren't as busy. You don't have to pay for pool heat. Even things like golf are a little bit cheaper. It is hotter, but I think it's more fun because it's like the perfect pool day weather. Give this video a like if you got some value out of it and you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys soon in another video. All right, bye.